Today we're going to be talking about the British colonists. The British colonists are a group of European explorers, but something set them apart and something made them different, and we're going to talk about that today. When we talked about our European explorers like Christopher Columbus, we said that they left Europe on their ships for three main reasons: God, glory, and gold. And while God and glory were important, the main reason was gold. They were trying to get to Asia where they could get spices that they could trade for lots of money. It was too slow and expensive to go over land, so they were trying to find a water route under Africa, over Asia, maybe around the world. In the process of trying to get to Asia, many of the European explorers found themselves in North and South America. And in North and South America, they actually found other ways to make money. So in Mexico and South America, the Spanish found gold. And they could just take that gold back to Europe and they were rich. In North America, the French found furs. Furs that they could take back to Europe and sell for lots of money and become rich. But the British are different. The Spanish are all about the gold and silver. The French are all about the furs. But the British came to settle. They bring their families and build towns and build churches. Most of the other groups that we talked about, the Spanish and the French, they were Europeans that came to trade. They took the gold and silver or the furs and they left. They didn't bring their families, their wives, and their kids. But the British actually did. They came to settle. And for that reason, because they stuck around, they actually had the biggest impact on us here in America. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the British settlers, and we're going to meet some of the British settlers. Now, the British settlers settled in 13 different areas called colonies. Here are the colonies here. We sort them into three groups: New England, Middle, and Southern. Let's start with the New England colonies and see what the settlers of the New England colonies looked like. The British settlers in New England were pilgrims and Puritans looking for religious freedom. You have a chart on your worksheet where you have to fill out some information about the British settlers in New England. Who are the pilgrims and the Puritans? That's who settled. And why they settled was religious freedom. In England, there was one official church, and you couldn't have any other church. So these people disagreed with the church, and they didn't have another church to go to. So they actually came to America to start their own church and find religious freedom. They still felt proud to be English, so that's why they called it New England, because they still thought they were in part of England, but they wanted their own church. The last box on your chart for New England has a spot that says colonies. Those are the different areas in New England that they settled. This map shows you your colonies in New England in red, okay? And here's your list here: Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. Go ahead and list those four colonies under the colonies box on part 2. Now, the New England colonists came there for a certain reason. When we go down to the middle colonies, we see people settled for other reasons. We also see that other people settled there. So let's meet some of the British settlers in the middle colonies. In the middle colonies, we not only have British settlers, but we have Quakers, Dutch, Jewish settlers, and others. Most people settled in the middle colonies for business. So in New England, they were all about church and religion. In the middle colonies, they're all about business. This information will help you fill out the boxes for middle colonies under who settled and why. For your colonies box, you can put New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. Now, we're not done with the middle colonies. One thing that I want to point out that I'm not sure if you understand is these different groups that settled: Quakers, Dutch, Jews, and others. In New England, there were two groups, the Puritans and the Pilgrims. They were both British, they were both Christians. In the middle colonies, you had British settlers who also welcomed people from other places. Actually, this is one of the Quakers trading with Native Americans. Unlike many other European settlers, the Quakers were fair and kind to the Native Americans. We call this diversity. When lots of different people from different backgrounds, different languages, different countries, different religions are living together. And the middle colonies are a place of diversity. I'm especially happy to be able to prove this to you with a primary source, an actual source that came from the time of British settlement in the middle colonies. Here's an early picture of New York. And if you look at the labels, we have a Dutch church, a Lutheran church, a French church, a Quakers meeting, a Jews synagogue. We have places for all kinds of different people. This is proof that we had many different people living in the middle colonies. Why do we have so many people living in the middle colonies? Well, remember, they're there for business. And you have many different natural resources that you can use for trading, for making goods and products that you can then make money off of. New England, it's too cold, not as many natural resources. So you didn't have as many people coming to work and trade like you did in the middle colonies. Now let's meet some of the British settlers in the southern colonies. We saw some differences between New England and the middle colonies. Now let's go down to the southern colonies. The southern colonies were settled by British businessmen and slaves. Businessmen in the southern colonies found great farmland that they were able to grow crops on. And so they went down there to start businesses and grow crops for money. One of the ways that they did that was by bringing slaves to work the fields for them. In the southern colonies, we have Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Use this information to fill in the colonies box of your southern colonies chart, and make sure that you have businessmen and slaves for who settled, and making money and growing cash crops for their reason. Now, the next part of your worksheet, you are going to be sailing around the colonies, and you're going to be landing in different spots, and you're going to be trying to figure out where in the colonies did you land. New England with the Puritans, the middle colonies with the Quakers and the Dutch, or the southern colonies with the slaves and the businessmen. So start looking at some of the different clues that you have when you land and try and figure out where are you and how do you know. After that, you'll be able to take your exit ticket. See you next time when we talk more about the British colonists.